Well, as we continue on with rank week here at PHLY, we'll also continue with our Phillies grades for the first half yesterday. If you got a chance to watch that video, we give a lot of high marks to the Phillies starting pitching, and rightfully so. Christopher Sanchez, Zach Wheeler, Ranger Suarez, even Jesus Lazardo, outside of his two bad starts, have been really, really good this year. I don't think the bullpen's going to get nearly as good of a grade as we gave out to the starting pitching. Let's talk about the Phillies bullpen next, right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast. Tyler Zulli here today, and as I said, as we continue our grades to hand out for the first half of the Phillies season, let's turn our attention to the bullpen. It's been a mess, to say the least. The Phillies team bullpen ERA has continued to be amongst some of the worst in the league, and it's kind of due in part to just a handful of different guys. So let's hand out our grades in this bullpen. I think you're going to see a couple of really high marks and a couple of perhaps failures in this episode today. Let's start with a guy who's probably been the most consistent and best pitcher in the Phillies bullpen in 2025, and that is Orion Kerkering. You can see here Orion Kerkering's numbers through the first half of the season. 41 appearances for Kerkering this year, a 2.78 ERA. He's striking out just about a batter per inning pitched. His walk rates are a little bit high and concerning for the most part, just in the 10th percentile across Major League Baseball. 19 walks. He has an 11.7, nearly 12% walk rate this year. And it's a big part as to why his whip is up at 1.43 this season. But Kerkering has had a much better summer than he did a spring. Struggled a little bit in terms of ERA in the month of April, but has posted consecutive months of under 1 ERAs in May and June. You can take a look at his baseball savant. The fastball's been good. He's limited hard contact for most of the season, just under 86 miles an hour in terms of average exit velocity, and he's not getting hit all that hard. Now, the one thing with Kerkering that was questioned early in the year was, is he succeeding with runners in scoring position, runners that are not his, the inherited runners, and how much is he allowing those runners to score? He was giving up a handful of those runners early in the year. He's been much better in that as of late, and the Phillies have entrusted him with a lot of high leverage innings this season. Now, with the game against the Giants notwithstanding, which I think was probably more Phil Cuzzy's fault than it was Orion Kerkering's fault, his last 2 months or so, there's no question about it, Orion Kirkering has been the best reliever in the Phillies bullpen pretty much the whole year, but over the last 2 months specifically. For Orion Kirkering, I think he's going to get the highest mark of the year out of the bullpen. Orion Kirkering gets an A- for me. A really strong first half of the year. Really just a little bit of a knock because of the early struggles that he had in April, but has been much better since the calendar flipped to May. Let's go to the Phillies' high leverage lefty, and kind of due in part because of the fact that Jose Alvarado was suspended for 80 games. Everybody from the left-hand side, everybody really in the bullpen entirely, has been asked to step up one more spot. But from the left-hand side, the high-leverage lefty now is Matt Strahm. And Matt Strahm, I think, has been good this year. I think clearly not the same year for Matt Strahm that he had last year when he was an all-star and had a sub-2 ERA for basically the entirety of the season. But let's take a look at Matt Strahm's numbers through the first half. 41 appearances and an ERA that's actually better than maybe some would think, a 3.29 ERA. His strikeout numbers have been really good this year. Over a strikeout an inning, 44 strikeouts in just over 38 innings pitched. The walks have been manageable, just giving up 33 hits, so just over a 1.1 whip. And if you're interested in saves, probably due to the fact that the Phillies don't have a whole lot of options, he already has a career high in saves this year at 6. Doesn't mean a whole lot, but Strahm's been very good again this season. Maybe not as good as he was last year, again, when he was an all-star, but the things that Matt Strahm does well, he's continued to do well so far this year. He's not getting barreled. His strikeout rates are good. He's generating a ton of chase outside of the zone. Now, he is getting hit a little bit harder than he did last season. 90 miles an hour on the dot, average exit velocity. He's not inducing ground balls at all this year, which sometimes can be a plight when a pitcher pitches at Citizens Bank Park, but he's done a good job of limiting damage for the most part. Matt Strahm's had himself a pretty good year. Less than last year, no doubt about it, but a pretty good year nonetheless. I think so far for this season, especially when he's pitching within the role that I think Matt Strahm thrives in, which is in the 7th and the 8th inning, Matt Strahm's had a very good season so far this year as well. I'm going to give Matt Strahm and his 3.29 ERA a B+ for the 2025 season. This brings us to that man. Let's talk about Jordan Romano. And on the bottom line of every single graphic we posted so far, I've given you a little bit of a fun fact or something that one of the guys has done well. I don't think it would be appropriate to write stinks in the bottom corner of the graphic, so we gave you something. But here's Jordan Romano's numbers. It's pretty much been a misallocation of $8.5 million. Jordan Romano was signed as a free agent this offseason by Dave Dombrowski in what is looking like a really bad free agent offseason for the Phillies GM. They've allocated $22 million to Romano, Joe Ross, and Max Kepler, and none are performing. You see Jordan Romano's 7.29 ERA, and the funny thing is that's actually started to trickle its way down a little bit from his first couple of months. There's been pockets where Jordan Romano has looked good. The fastball has had some life. The slider has had control and has looked pretty good. But for the most part this year, Jordan Romano has been really bad. He is striking out more than a hitter per inning pitch, 37 over 33 and a third. But the big concerning number is the 36 hits that he's allowed in just 33 innings. He has a 1.5 whip so far this year, which means he's giving up a base runner and a half per inning pitched. And the big problem that I have with Jordan Romano and have had for a while is this guy has absolutely zero ability to hold runners on. He is in the bottom 10 across all of Major League Baseball in net base runners at a -7, which means he's basically giving up free bases. If you get a single or a walk off of Jordan Romano, if you have any kind of speed at all, it basically turns into a double because you're going to steal second base. He is generating quite a bit of swing and miss. His whiff numbers are good. His strikeout numbers are good, but the walk rates aren't. He's not really been anywhere near consistent enough for the Phillies. I think this is a pretty resounding and easy grade to hand out. It's the second F that we are going to hand out this season behind Aaron Nola in the starting rotation. Jordan Romano has been terrible this season. There's no other way to put it. He's probably been amongst the worst arms in a bad bullpen. Let's get to a guy that we had expectations for, or from a guy that we had expectations for, to a guy that we didn't really have a ton of expectations and I think has exceeded a lot of our expectations. That's Tanner Banks. You've heard me talk about Tanner Banks in the past before. I'm very high on what Tanner Banks has done, and he's done an excellent job since joining the Phillies. This guy was asked to be a low-leverage left-handed reliever, and instead now has been tasked with getting some big outs, especially against lefties, with the departure of Jose Alvarado. Here's Tanner Banks' numbers through the 2025 season. A 3.29 ERA and 40 appearances. He's pitched 41 innings. He struck out 40 hitters. He's walked just 5, and that is why his whip is under 1 for the season. He has been one of the unheralded pitchers in the Phillies bullpen. Tanner Banks has been excellent since the calendar has rolled on into June. Over the last 15 innings that he's pitched, he's given up just 4 earned runs. His walk rate is through the roof, just 3.1%, and I mean that in a positive way in terms of being in the 99th percentile. He's not giving up a lot of hard hit contact. He's generating a good amount of chase. His strikeout rates are better than they were a season ago. I have a lot of faith in Tanner Banks right now, and he's been really good for the first half of the season. I do worry about, is he being maybe used too much because out of necessity, the Phillies don't have a lot of trusted arms. But I think so far this year, especially against left-handed hitters, Tanner Banks has been better than anybody could have expected. Much like Matt Strahm, I trust the 2 high-leverage lefties in the Phillies bullpen, and despite the fact that the Phillies bullpen overall has not been very good, those 3 guys, Kerkering, Strahm, and Banks, have been pretty good for the most part. Just like Matt Strahm, I'm going to give Tanner Banks a B+ on this one. And I know it's crazy to hand out some good marks for guys that, for a bullpen that hasn't been very good, but those 3 are the standouts of this group. All right, let's get to the rest of the bad. Joe Ross is up next for the Phillies, and Joe Ross was signed for $4 million this offseason, and basically Rob Thomson has no trust in him. You saw it the other night when he tried to send Jordan Romano back out for a 5-out save against the Giants. Joe Ross was warming up, never got put into the game. I don't think anybody has a whole lot of faith in Joe Ross at this current moment, and it's easy to see why. Here's his numbers so far. Just 29 appearances, a 5.4 ERA for Ross. He's only struck out 30 over 40 and 2/3 innings pitched, 41 and 2/3 innings pitched, excuse me. The walk rate's not awful, 52nd percentile, but it's the hits that make the whip so bad. 47 hits allowed in less than 42 innings pitched, and it's why he's at about 1.5 whip for the season. And since the turn of the calendar in June and July, he had an okay May, but since the turn of the calendar in June and July, he has a 7+ ERA in both of those months, and the expected ERA is actually worse than what he's put together. So the computer tells you they think Joe Ross has actually somehow been better than what's expected. I think the fall off is significant. June and July have not been good months for him, and it's why Rob Thomson doesn't trust him. His strikeout rates aren't good. He's getting barreled quite a bit. He is keeping the ball on the ground, but he's giving up a lot of hard contact in doing it. Joe Ross right now just doesn't have a whole lot of trust out of the Phillies manager and out of the Phillies front office. I think for Joe Ross, this is a pretty easy grade. It's been a bad year for him. Joe Ross gets a D. And the only reason he doesn't get an F is because Jordan Romano's been worse, and he got an F in this one. Now, before we get to the final guy, there's a couple of guys that we need to mention that are no longer on this team. Jose Ruiz and Carlos Hernandez. Both would have gotten Fs. They were terrible this season, and it's why they've been DFA'd by the team so far early into the season and through the first half of the season. Ruiz was the first to go. He really struggled. He was very good last year, was terrible this season. The Phillies brought Carlos Hernandez in spring training after the Royals DFA'd him, liked his stuff, threw hard. He wasn't any good either. So both of those guys would have gotten an F. Let's get to our last guy here, and it's Max Lazar. And Lazar actually has been, I think, fairly serviceable for the Phillies so far out of the bullpen. He's not been tasked with a lot of high leverage innings, but I do think he's been okay in spots. Let's take a look at Lazar's numbers so far this season. 15 appearances, a 3.54 ERA. He's not been asked, again, not a lot of high leverage stuff. He was recalled on May 19th and has been in the bullpen since. Whip is manageable. He's given up 24 base runners and 20 1/3 innings pitched. Not a ton of strikeouts, but I think his stuff has been actually pretty decent. Now, you take a look at the Baseball Reference. He doesn't qualify for a lot of stuff, but a lot of blue in there. Not striking out a lot. Walk rates are okay. He's getting barreled and hard hit at a fairly high rate, giving up a lot of hard contact at 92.7 miles an hour on average. I think Max Lazar has been fine in the role that he's in. I don't think he's anything special, but I think he's been better than those other two guys that I just mentioned. He's provided a little bit of stability. The 3.5 ERA is good, but I think the expected numbers tell you he's due for a regression at some point. I think this has been a baseline player for the Phillies. He's been better than the two other guys that they DFA'd prior to him. I'm going to give Max Lazar a C. Maybe a C-. I think it's been a fine year. He's stabilized the bullpen in the low leverage situations a little bit. I think Rob Thomson's gaining a little bit of trust in him as he continues to pitch at least numerically well. And I think we'll see what happens in the second half from Max Lazar. So the thing with the Phillies bullpen, I think for the most part, is there's not a lot of middle ground. Lazar gets the only average grade, but it's either a bunch of Fs and a D, or some high marks, a couple B pluses and an A in the fact of Orion Kerkering. So there's a reason why the Phillies need to look to bolster this bullpen. They have 3 guys right now that the Phillies trust. It's Orion Kirkering, it's Matt Strahm, and it's Tanner Banks. You can't go into a postseason with only 3 relievers that you trust. Dave Dombrowski is going to have to address the bullpen. But those 3 guys have been pretty good so far through the first couple of months of the season. Let's see what the Phillies do at the trade deadline, because they desperately need some at least middle of the bullpen help, but probably another high leverage arm to allow the rest of the guys to slot where they naturally should be.